Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku had to protect his name. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The rain over Musudafu didn't fall. It felt like it was being driven into the earth by a heavy, invisible hand. It was a cold, relentless downpour that had persisted for 3 days, turning the skies a bruised purple and the grounds of Ue High into a slick, reflective mirror of the gloom above. Inside the Heights Alliance storms, the air was thick, not with humidity, but with a palpable, sticky tension. It had been weeks since the Paranormal Liberation War. The dust had settled, but the scars hadn't scabbed over. Society was fragile. The public looked at heroes not with admiration, but with a desperate, frantic scrutiny. Every mistake was magnified. Every failure was a betrayal. Izuku Midoriya sat on the edge of the common room sofa, his notebook open but his pen hovering inches above the paper. The ink had dried on the nib. He wasn't writing. He was listening to the rhythm of the rain and the low hum of the television news. Protests continue in the Shinjuku district. The news anchor reported, her voice tight. Citizens are demanding accountability regarding the widespread destruction during the suppression of the Liberation Front. Hero approval ratings have dropped to an all-time low of 42%. Turn it off. Katsuki Bakugo grunted from the kitchen island. He was chopping vegetables with a violence that suggested the carrots had personally offended him. It's the same garbage every night. Shoto Todoroki, who was sipping tea nearby, picked up the remote and silenced the screen. The room breathed a collective sigh of relief, though the silence that followed was hardly comforting. Thanks, Bakugo, Eijiro Kirishima said, leaning back in his chair. He looked tired. They all did. The war had aged Class 1A. Their eyes were a little less bright, their postures a little more guarded. I don't think I can handle any more bad news today. Izuku finally closed his notebook. He felt a dull ache in his arms, the phantom sensation of one for all buzzing beneath his skin. Since the war, his training had intensified, driven by a paranoia that he wasn't strong enough. He checked his phone. No messages from All Might. That was becoming common. The former symbol of peace was busy navigating the political fallout, shielding his successor from the wolves of the Hero Public Safety Commission, HPSC. Deku-kun? Ochako Uraraka's voice broke his trance. She was standing near the sofa, holding a tray of tea. Her eyes were soft, searching. You're doing that mumbling thing again. Inside your head, Izuku blinked, managing a weak smile. Sorry, Uraraka-san. Just thinking about the court grass training tomorrow. Danger sense has been a little sensitive lately. It's the weather. Tsuyu Ajiri croaked from the floor, where she was stretching. Low pressure makes everyone jumpy. Maybe, Izuku murmured, but it wasn't the weather. Since this morning, the fourth user's quirk, danger sense, had been giving him low-level feedback. It wasn't the sharp stab of immediate threat, but a dull, throbbing headache at the base of his skull. It felt like being watched. It felt like malice suspended in the air, waiting for gravity to pull it down. Dinner's ready, Rikido Sato announced, carrying a large pot of curry from the kitchen. Come and get it before Bakugo explodes the stove. I'll explode your face, sugar lips! Bakugo barked, though there was no real heat in it. The class began to gather, the promise of warm food momentarily piercing the gloom. For a moment, things felt normal. Tenya Ida was chopping the air, instructing everyone on proper queuing etiquette for the ladle. Genki Kaminari and Minoru Mineta were arguing about a video game. Momo Yayorozu was creating extra napkins. Then, the world shifted. It didn't start with an explosion, but with a sound much more chilling, the harsh, discordant screech of the UA perimeter alarm system. Not the drill siren. The intruder alert. Level red! Ida shouted instantly, his engines revving. Everyone, defensive positions! Away from the windows! The class moved with practiced fluidity. In seconds, the domestic scene vanished. Curry was abandoned. Hero costumes, or at least the mental state of heroes, were donned. They formed a perimeter in the center of the room, facing the entrance. Is it villains? Jiro Kyoka asked, her earphone jacks plunging into the floorboards to listen for vibrations. Her eyes went wide. I hear vehicles. Heavy ones? And marching? There are dozens of footsteps. Villains wouldn't march, Todoroki said, ice creeping up his right side. The front doors of the Heights Alliance dorm didn't open. They were slammed open by a battering ram of authorized force. Izuku flinched, his danger sense spiking sharply. Through the rain and the shattered lock, figures swarmed into the entryway. They weren't villains. They were dressed in the black tactical gear of the HPSC Special Ops, flanked by uniformed police officers. And leading them was a man Izuku knew. A man he trusted. Detective Naomasa Tsukachi. But Tsukachi looked different. His trench coat was soaked, his hat pulled low, and his eyes, usually kind and tired, were hard as flint. Beside him stood Shota Aizawa, their homeroom teacher, looking furious and restrained, his capture weapon gripping his own arms as if to keep himself from lashing out. What is the meaning of this? Ida stepped forward, his voice booming with authority. Detective? You cannot just storm the dorms of UA students. Tsukachi didn't look at Ida. He scanned the room, his gaze passing over Bakugo, Todoroki, and Uraraka before locking onto Izuku. Secure the exits, Tsukachi ordered, his voice devoid of emotion. Nobody leaves. Sensei? Izuku looked at Aizawa. What's happening? Aizawa's jaw worked. He looked at Izuku with an expression of profound pain. Problem child, just listen to them. Don't resist. We will sort this out. Resist what? Bakugo stepped in front of Izuku, sparks popping in his palms. Why are you pointing guns at us? It was true. The tactical team had their rifles raised, not at the class in general, but specifically at the cluster of students where Izuku stood. Tsukachi stepped forward, pulling a document from his coat. It was laminated to protect it from the rain. It bore the red stamp of the High Court and the black seal of the Safety Commission. Izuku Midoriya, Tsukachi said, the name sounding foreign in his mouth. You are under arrest for acts of terrorism, grand larceny, 14 counts of aggravated assault, and violation of the Quirk Regulation Act. The silence that followed was absolute. It was heavy enough to crush lungs. Huh? Kaminari laughed nervously. Good joke, detective. Terrorism? Deku? The guy cries if he steps on a bug. This is not a joke. A woman in a sharp suit stepped out from behind Tsukachi. She was an HPSC agent, her face severe. Secure the suspect. Use quirk-suppressing cuffs immediately. Wait! Uraraka screamed, throwing her arms out. You're making a mistake. Izuku hasn't left the campus in 3 days. We've all been together. Yeah! Kirishima yelled, hardening his arms. You got the wrong guy. Check your intel. We have checked the intel, Tsukachi said, his voice cracking slightly. And we have evidence. Irrefutable evidence. He signaled to one of the officers, who set a portable projector on the coffee table. He linked it to a tablet. This footage was taken 6 hours ago in the Kamino Ward Relief District, Tsukachi said. Watch. The projection flickered to life against the pale wall of the common room. The timestamp in the corner read 2 a.m. The footage was high definition, taken from a security camera mounted on a bank. It showed a disaster relief shelter, a place storing food, medicine, and support items for displaced civilians. The front wall of the shelter exploded. From the dust emerged a figure. He was wearing a dark green costume. The bunny ear cowl was pulled up. Iron saws crunched on the debris. Green lightning, unmistakable, crackling green lightning, arced around his body. No! Izuku whispered, the blood draining from his face. On the screen, the figure moved with terrifying speed. A volunteer security guard stepped out, raising a gun. The figure didn't just disarm him. He used a black tendril of energy, Black Whip, to slam the man into a concrete pillar with bone-breaking force. The figure on the screen laughed. It wasn't a hero's laugh. It was a manic, high-pitched cackle that distorted through the audio feed. More! Give me more! The figure screamed. The voice was Izuku's. It was pitch perfect. The on-screen Deku proceeded to tear through the shelter. He ripped open a vault containing high-grade support tech batteries. He didn't just take them. He smashed the medical supplies nearby, kicking over crates of insulin and antibiotics, leaving them to spoil in the mud. Before leaving, the figure turned directly to the camera. His mask was torn slightly, revealing a freckled cheek and a glowing green eye. He winked, saluted mockingly, and vaulted away, shattering the camera with a final blast of air pressure. The projection cut to black. The common room was dead silent. Izuku felt like he was floating, untethered from reality. He looked at his hands. They were trembling. That's fake, Bakugo said, though his voice lacked its usual certainty. He looked at the screen, then at Izuku. That's obviously a shapeshifter. Toga. It has to be Toga. We considered that, the HPSC agent said coldly. But Himiko Toga cannot copy quirks. The suspect in the video used distinct emitter quirks. The lightning. The black energy tendrils. Only one person possesses that specific combination. The biometric data was analyzed, Tsukachi added, looking down at the floor. Gait analysis, vocal print, retinal scan from the clear shot of the eye. It's a 99.9% match. And we found blood at the scene. The suspect cut himself on the glass. We ran the DNA against the UE database. He looked up, meeting Izuku's eyes with a look of betrayal that hurt worse than any punch. It's your blood, Midoriya. It can't be. Izuku stammered, his voice small. I was sleeping. Ask Aoyama-kun. Our rooms are next to each other. I heard nothing, Manami. Aoyama whispered, looking terrified. But you are very quiet when you move. The dorm security logs show the sensors in your room were disabled at 1 a.m. and reactivated at 4 a.m. The agent stated. You are a tech enthusiast, are you not? Hacking a localized sensor is within your capabilities. I didn't. Izuku shouted, tears pricking his eyes. I swear I didn't. Why would I do that? Why would I hurt people? That's what we want to know, the agent said. The stress of the war breaks people. Perhaps the power of one for all corrupted you. Or perhaps you've been working with Shigaraki all along. Take that back. Bakugo lunged forward, but Aizawa's capture scarf snapped out, restraining him. Bakugo, stand down! Aizawa barked. He turned to the police. Tsukachi, this doesn't make sense. You know this kid. He breaks his own bones to save cats. This setup, it's too perfect. The evidence is absolute, Eraserhead. The HPSC agent snapped. We are not here to debate. We are here to extract a threat. Hand him over, or you will be charged with obstruction of justice and aiding a villain. The tactical team racked the slides of their rifles. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Izuku looked around. He saw the doubt in the eyes of his classmates. Mineta was hiding behind the sofa, shaking. Kaminari looked sick. Even Todoroki was staring at him with a furrowed brow, analyzing the facts. Logic dictated that DNA didn't lie. Deku-kun. Uraraka stepped closer, her hands trembling. Tell them. Just tell them it's wrong. Prove it. I don't know how, Izuku whispered. The despair was a physical weight in his chest. If the government had his DNA, his biometrics, and video footage, how could he prove a negative? Izuku Midoriya, the agent commanded. Step forward. Hands where we can see them. Any sudden movement will be met with lethal force. Izuku took a breath. He looked at Aizawa. His teacher gave him a microscopic nod, a signal that meant comply now, we fight this legally later. Izuku stepped forward. He raised his hands. I'm innocent, he said firmly. And I'll prove it. An officer approached with heavy, metal cuffs designed to suppress quirks. He grabbed Izuku's wrists roughly. Don't try anything, villain. The officer hissed in his ear. The cold metal touched his skin, and then, danger sense screamed. It wasn't the dull headache from before. It was a blinding, white-hot spike of agony that felt like an ice pick being driven into his brain. It drowned out the sound of the rain. It drowned out the voices of his friends. The sensation wasn't coming from the officer cuffing him. It wasn't coming from Tsukachi. It was coming from the window. Fourth user, move! The voice echoed in the vestige world, primal and desperate. Izuku didn't think. He reacted. One for all flooded his system at 30%. Green lightning tore through the room, shattering the coffee table and blowing the paperwork out of Tsukachi's hands. He's resisting! The agent shrieked. Engage! Crack! The sound of the sniper rifle fired from the building across the street was muffled by the storm, but the impact was instantaneous. The bullet, a heavy caliber, anti-quirk round designed to penetrate armor, smashed through the reinforced glass of the common room. It occupied the space where Izuku's head had been a millisecond before. Instead of his skull, the bullet struck the floor, exploding into concrete dust. Time seemed to slow down. Bakugo's eyes went wide as he saw the bullet hole in the floor. He realized instantly what it meant. They aren't trying to arrest him. They're trying to kill him. DKU, get down! Bakugo roared. But Izuku was already moving. The realization hit him with the force of a truck. The HPSC agent hadn't flinched at the shot. Tsukachi had looked surprised, but the tactical team was raising their rifles not to subdue, but to execute. They didn't want a trial. They wanted the holder of one for all dead before he could become a liability. They wanted to bury the secrets of the quirks along with him. Fire! The agent ordered. Wait, stop! Aizawa yelled, his hair floating up as he tried to erase the quirks of the firing squad, but he couldn't erase bullets. The tactical team opened fire. Izuku channeled Black Whip. 6 tendrils erupted from his back, not to attack, but to defend. He wove them into a chaotic shield, grabbing sofas, chairs, and tables, hurling them into the line of fire to create a barricade. Bullets shredded the furniture. Foam and wood splinters filled the air. Everyone get down! Izuku screamed, his voice breaking. He was terrified that a stray bullet would hit Uraraka or Ida. He had to leave. If he stayed, the class would be caught in the crossfire. He looked at his friends one last time through the haze of smoke and debris. He saw Uraraka reaching for him, tears streaming down her face. He saw Bakugo fighting against Aizawa's capture tape to get to him. He saw Todoroki creating an ice wall to block the police fire. He couldn't let them become accomplices. He couldn't let them die for him. I'm sorry! Izuku yelled. He turned toward the large bay window that looked out over the UA grounds. Don't let him escape! The agent screamed. Izuku engaged full cowling 45%. The pressure on his legs was immense. He focused the power. Smash! He kicked the window. The reinforced glass, designed to withstand villain attacks, shattered outward into the rainy night. Izuku launched himself into the storm. The cold wind hit him instantly, soaking his clothes. He didn't look back. He grabbed the side of the building with Black Whip, swinging around the corner just as a second sniper shot pulverized the brickwork where his hand had been. He was in free fall now, descending toward the wooded area surrounding the dorms. Behind him, alarms wailed louder. Spotlights from guard towers swept the grounds, searching for him. He landed in the mud, rolling to absorb the impact. He was wearing his casual clothes, a t-shirt and sweatpants. No armor. No support items. No shoes suited for running. He scrambled to his feet, slipping on the wet grass. There! A voice shouted from the perimeter wall. A hero patrolling the grounds. It was Snipe. Midoriya! Stop right there! Snipe called out, his gun raised. Don't make me do this! Izuku didn't stop. He pushed off the ground, green sparks illuminating the rain. He used float to glide over the uneven terrain, moving faster than a human should be able to. A bullet whizzed past his ear, grazing his cheek. A sting of pain, followed by the warmth of blood mixing with the rain. They were really shooting to kill. The reality of it finally crashed down on him as he breached the tree line. The school, his home, his sanctuary, was now a hunting ground. The teachers he idolized were being forced to hunt him. The system he swore to uphold had marked him for death. He was running through the dark forest, branches whipping his face, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Why? His mind screamed. Why is this happening? He thought of the footage. The laughter. The green lightning. Someone knew. Someone knew about One for All's visual cues. Someone had access to his DNA. Someone had the resources to fake biometric data that could fool the police. All for One. The name hung in his mind like a curse. It had to be him. Or Shigaraki. This wasn't just about framing him. It was about isolating him. If the world hated him, he had nowhere to hide. If the heroes hunted him, he had no allies. He reached the outer wall of UA. The massive barrier that was supposed to keep villains out was now keeping him in. He heard the roar of engines behind him. Ida. He could hear the reciprocal burst of explosions. Bakugo. They were coming. To catch him? To save him? It didn't matter. If they caught him, the HPSC would take custody. If they saved him, they would be branded traitors. He had to sever the tie. Izuku powered up to 50%, the pain in his bones a grounding reminder of his reality. He leaped, clearing the massive wall in a single bound. He landed on the asphalt of the city street outside. The world was dark, illuminated only by the streetlights reflecting in the puddles. He paused for a fraction of a second, looking back at the towering silhouette of Yue high against the stormy sky. He saw the lights of the dorms, the place where he had laughed, cried, and grown. He was leaving it all behind. He pulled the hood of his sweatshirt up, hiding his green hair. He hunched his shoulders, making himself smaller. The hero Deku was dead. The police scanners were already broadcasting the APB. Suspect is Izuku Midoriya. Hero name Deku. Quirk, superpower. Extremely dangerous. Approach with lethal caution. Izuku turned away from the school and ran into the shadows of the city. Tears mixed with the rain on his face, hot and angry. He wouldn't get caught. He couldn't. He had to find the imposter. He had to clear his name. And he had to do it alone. As he vanished into the labyrinth of Muzutafu's back alleys, the symbol of peace didn't shine. It flickered, dimmed, and went dark, swallowed by the storm. The hunt had begun. Scene break. 30 minutes later, Yue Heights Alliance. The common room was a wreck. Shattered glass covered the floor. The rain blew in through the broken window, soaking the carpet. Aizawa stood in the center of the room, staring at the spot where his student had been standing. His capture weapon was loose around his neck. He looked older, more haggard than ever before. Class 1A was in chaos. You tried to kill him! Bakugo was screaming, being held back by Kirishima and Sato. He was thrashing like a wild animal. I saw the bullet hole. That wasn't a warning shot. You aimed for his head. The HPSC agent was checking her phone, unperturbed. The suspect resisted arrest and demonstrated Class S threat capabilities. Protocol dictates. Screw your protocol! Bakugo roared. That's Deku. He wouldn't hurt a fly. The video is fake. The video is authenticated, Tsukachi said, though he was kneeling by the hole in the floor, tracing the impact divot with a trembling finger. Bakugo, the DNA. I don't care about the DNA! Uraraka cried out. She was on her knees, clutching a piece of Izuku's notebook that had fallen in the scuffle. I know him. We all know him. He didn't do this. Then where did he go? The agent asked sharply. If he is innocent, why run? Why flee the scene? Because you were shooting at him, Todoroki said, his voice cold as absolute zero. He stepped forward, ice freezing the ground beneath his feet. You didn't give him a choice. You backed a cornered animal and expected it to submit to slaughter. Aizawa turned to the agent. His eyes glowed red. Get out, he growled. The agent blinked. Excuse me? Get out of my dorms, Aizawa said, his voice vibrating with suppressed rage. You've done your job. You scared a 16-year-old boy into the streets during a storm. You've turned the strongest asset we have against us. Get out. This isn't over, Eraserhead, the agent said, signaling her team to withdraw. If you or your students attempt to contact the fugitive, you will be charged with treason. They left, leaving the door hanging off its hinges. The room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. The wind howled through the broken window. Mina Ishido was sobbing quietly into Yaoyorozu's shoulder. Ida was staring at the wall, his fists clenched so hard his knuckles were white. Bakugo stopped struggling. Kirishima let him go. Bakugo walked over to the broken window. He looked out into the darkness, the rain plastering his hair to his skull. He gripped the window frame, smoke rising from his palms. He's an idiot, Bakugo whispered, his voice shaking. He's a damn nerd who can't do anything right. He turned back to the class. His eyes were burning with a fierce, terrifying determination. He's going to try to fix this by himself, Bakugo said. Because he thinks he has to protect us. He thinks if he leaves, we're safe. We have to go after him, Uraraka said, standing up. Her eyes were puffy, but her gaze was steel. No, Aizawa said. They all turned to him, ready to argue. No, Aizawa repeated. He walked over to the coffee table and picked up the tablet the police had left behind. He looked at the frozen image of the fake Deku laughing. Aizawa looked up at his students. If you go after him now, you play right into their hands. You get arrested, and Midoriya loses his only support system. So we just do nothing? Kirishima asked, frustrated. We do what heroes do, Aizawa said. He tossed the tablet to Todoroki. We investigate. We find the truth. We find the holes in their perfect evidence. He looked at the broken window. Midoriya is on his own for now. He has to survive the night. But tomorrow, Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Tomorrow, we start the counterattack. Bakugo looked back out into the night. Don't die, Deku, he thought. If you die out there, I'll never forgive you. Outside, the storm raged on, washing away the footprints of the boy who used to be a hero, leaving only the path of the vigilante behind. The city of Muzidafu was usually a tapestry of light, neon signs advertising support gear, holographic billboards celebrating the latest hero rankings, and the warm, amber glow of street lamps guiding citizens home. But tonight, the city felt like a mouth closing around a piece of prey. Izuku Midoriya huddled in the narrow gap between a dumpster and a brick wall in a back alley of the commercial district. The rain hadn't stopped. It poured in sheets, a cold, relentless deluge that washed the grime of the city over his shivering form. He was soaked to the bone. His t-shirt clung to his skin, offering zero protection against the biting wind. The graze on his cheek, courtesy of the police sniper, throbbed with a dull, hot rhythm. But the physical pain was a distant echo compared to the cacophony inside his head. Suspect is Izuku Midoriya. Class S threat. Villain designation Deku. The words from the police scanner he'd overheard earlier looped in his mind. He pulled his knees to his chest, trying to conserve warmth. Danger sense was a constant, low-grade buzz at the base of his skull. It wasn't the sharp stab of immediate attack. It was the suffocating pressure of a city that wanted him dead. Every police siren that wailed in the distance, every helicopter rotor thumping overhead, every pair of eyes that might glance down this alleyway. It all registered as a threat. He was the ninth holder of One for All. The successor to All Might. The boy who had broken his bones 1,000 times to save people who didn't know his name. And now, he was the most wanted criminal in Japan. Izuku squeezed his eyes shut. Think. You have to think. Panicking won't save the legacy. Panicking won't save One for All. He forced his breathing to slow. He began to mutter, the habit slipping out even in his despair, a frantic whisper lost in the rain. They have biometric data. Gait analysis implies they studied my movements for months. Voice print match means they likely used a synthesization quirk, or high-grade AI editing. DNA match, that's the hardest to fake. Unless they had a sample. The hospital? The training camp? The war? There was so much blood during the war. Anyone could have scraped it off the ground. He opened his eyes. The logic calmed him slightly, but the reality remained. To the world, the logic didn't matter. The footage was visceral. The betrayal was personal. He needed to move. Staying in one spot was a death sentence. Izuku engaged full cowling at a mere 2%, just enough to warm his muscles and heighten his senses without generating the telltale green lightning that would give away his position. He peeked around the corner of the alley. The street was mostly empty due to the storm, but the giant screens mounted on the skyscrapers were blazing. Izuku looked up, and his heart shattered all over again. The massive jumbotron in the town square, usually reserved for All Might's old highlight reels or perfume commercials, was broadcasting a special report. The banner at the bottom read, "The Fallen Symbol." On the screen, a news anchor with a mutation quirk that gave him 3 eyes was speaking with grave urgency. We repeat the warning issued by the Hero Public Safety Commission. Do not approach this individual. The student known as Deku is considered armed and highly volatile. New reports suggest his enrollment at UA High may have been part of a long-term infiltration strategy orchestrated by the League of Villains. The screen cut to a montage. It showed the fake footage of the relief shelter attack. Then, it showed a clip from the sports festival, Izuku looking feral, breaking his fingers. Then, a clip of him looking terrifying during the war. Context was stripped away. Without the heroism, he just looked like a monster. He deceived us all. The anchor continued. Is this the end of the hero's society? Can we trust anyone? Izuku pulled his head back into the shadows. His breath hitched. It wasn't just that they thought he was a villain. They were rewriting his entire history. Every smile, every save, every sacrifice was being painted as a lie. A group of teenagers walked past the alley mouth, huddled under umbrellas. Did you see the Twitter thread? One asked. Someone leaked his middle school records. Apparently he was quirkless and then suddenly got a power? Total sleeper agent vibes. I knew he was creepy, another said. Always mumbling. And that violence? Breaking his own limbs? That's not normal. Only a villain is that crazy. My mom said we should sell our All Might merch. If his successor is a psycho, then All Might's judgment is trash too. They passed by, their voices fading. Izuku slumped against the wet brick. They were attacking All Might's legacy now. Because of him. I have to fix this, he thought, gripping his arms so tight his fingernails dug into skin. I can't let All Might's name be dragged through the mud. I have to find who did this. But first, he needed to survive the night. Somewhere in the industrial district, the shadows. While Izuku shivered in the rain, the architects of his downfall were warm, dry, and basking in the glow of their success. The hideout was an abandoned automated shipping warehouse on the docks. The massive robotic arms hung silent and rusted from the ceiling, casting long, skeletal shadows. In the center of the vast, empty space, a makeshift command center had been erected. Banks of servers hummed with a low, aggressive energy. Monitors covered an entire wall, displaying live feeds from traffic cameras, police body cams, and news networks. Look at those numbers tumble! Toga Himiko squealed, spinning in a swivel chair. She was holding a knife, twirling it dexterously between her fingers. Approval ratings plummeting. Fear index rising. It's so messy. I love it. She stopped spinning and leaned toward the central monitor, which showed a frozen image of Izuku's face from the leaked footage. She traced the screen with the tip of her blade. But poor Izuku-kun, she cooed, her voice dropping to a sultry, unsettling whisper. He must be so lonely right now. So cold. Everyone hates him. Everyone wants to hurt him, she blushed, her cheeks dusting pink. Now he knows how we feel. Now we're the same. Focus, Toga. A distorted voice grated from the shadows. Stepping into the light of the monitors was a figure wrapped in a dark, tech-heavy cloak. This was mimicry. He was not the Yakuza mimic who merged with Stone. This was a remnant of the Paranormal Liberation Front's intelligence division, a villain named Kageyama who had been pulled from the rubble of Gunga Mountain. His quirk, Biosignal, allowed him to intercept, record, and rebroadcast biological signatures. He could make a scanner think a rat was a human, or a human was a bomb. The HPSC is mobilizing faster than anticipated, Mimicry said, typing rapidly on a holographic keyboard. They are bypassing due process. They've authorized lethal force for Class B heroes and above. If they kill him too quickly, we lose our leverage. Shigaraki said to break him. Toga hummed, hopping off the chair. He didn't say we couldn't break him physically too. But you did good with the voice, Mimicry-chan. It sounded just like him when he screams. It was a simple matter of modulating the pitch based on his battle cries during the war. Mimicry said dismissively. The hard part is the continuous loop. I have to keep jamming the biometric scanners in the city to create false positives. I've made Deku appear in 3 different wards in the last hour. The police are chasing ghosts. Toga walked over to a small, medical-grade refrigerator sitting on a desk. She peered through the glass door. Inside was a single vial of blood, labeled Midoriya War Arc Remnant. It was nearly empty. We're running low though, Toga said, pouting. I only have enough for maybe 2 more transformations. Short ones. If I want to be him again, I need a refill. She licked her lips, her golden eyes gleaming. Maybe I should go find him. I'm the only one who knows where he'd hide. Heroes look for hideouts. Izuku-kun looks for holes. No, A deep voice echoed from a speaker on the desk. It was the recorded voice of All for One, transmitted via a secure, untraceable frequency. Both villains straightened up. The boy must be isolated. All for One's voice commanded. Let the society he fought to protect be the one to hunt him. Let him taste the bitterness of their ingratitude. When he is exhausted, when his spirit is fractured and he realizes that saving everyone is a lie, that is when we will take one for all. Understood. Mimicry bowed to the speaker. Besides, the voice added, amusement coloring the tone. The HPSC is doing our work for us. They are so desperate to maintain the illusion of control that they will destroy their greatest asset. It is poetic, Toga sighed, flopping back onto a beanbag chair. Fine. I'll wait. But if the police kill him, I'm going to stab them. All of them. The sewers beneath Izuku had been forced underground. The streets were too dangerous. Drones were patrolling the skies now, sleek, black HPSC models equipped with thermal imaging. Every time he tried to move above ground, danger sense flared like a migraine. He had pried open a manhole cover in an alley and dropped into the storm drains. The smell was atrocious: rot, sewage, and stagnant water. But it was hidden. He waded through shin-deep water, the only light coming from the faint green glow of his own quirk, which he kept at the barest minimum, 0.5% output, just to see where he was stepping. He was exhausted. The adrenaline from the escape was fading, replaced by the gnawing ache of hunger and the stinging pain of his injuries. He hadn't eaten since lunch, and his body, with its high metabolic requirements due to One for All, was screaming for calories. He found a dry ledge near a junction of tunnels and collapsed onto it. He leaned his head back against the damp concrete wall. I need to contact All Might, he whispered to the darkness. He reached into his pocket. His smartphone was crushed, destroyed during the escape when he slammed into the wall. He had done it on purpose, realizing they could track the GPS. He needed a landline. But payphones were rare, and using one meant surfacing. Think, Deku. Who can I trust? The list, which used to be dozens of names long, was now terrifyingly short. Class 1A? No. If he contacted them, they would be implicated. Aizawa? Being watched. His mother? God, no. The police were probably sitting in her living room right now. He was radioactive. Suddenly, a splash echoed down the tunnel. Izuku stiffened. Danger sense gave a sharp thrum. He scrambled to his feet, pressing his back against the wall. He cut the power to One for All, plunging the tunnel into darkness. He held his breath. Scanner picked up a biosign down here, Death Arms. A voice echoed. It sounded tinny, distorted by the tunnel acoustics. Probably a rat. A deeper, gruffer voice replied. Or a homeless squatter. Command said check everything. The kid is desperate. Beams of flashlights cut through the darkness, sweeping across the water. Izuku's heart hammered against his ribs. It was a search party. And not just police, pros. He recognized the voice. Death Arms. The hero who had scolded him back when he was a middle schooler during the sludge villain incident. The hero who had always looked at him with skepticism. There were 3 of them. Death Arms and 2 sidekicks with emitter quirks. One had glowing hands, the other held a rifle-like support item. They were getting closer. The light swept over the ledge where Izuku was standing. He had nowhere to go. The tunnel behind him was a dead end. I can't fight them. If I fight, I prove them right. Hey! Over there! The sidekick with the glowing hands spotted the wet footprints on the ledge. The flashlight beam snapped onto Izuku. He flinched, shielding his eyes. Midoriya! Death Arms shouted, his gauntlet fists raising. Don't move! Hands behind your head, please! Izuku's voice came out raspy. I didn't do it. You have to listen, save it for the judge. Death Arms growled. We saw the tape. You're sick, kid. Attacking a relief shelter? Stealing meds from sick people? You're worse than a villain. You're a traitor. It wasn't me, Izuku pleaded. It was an imposter. Check the timestamps. Check the fire. Death Arms ordered. The sidekick with the rifle didn't hesitate. He fired a compressed air bullet. Izuku dodged. He didn't want to, but his body moved on instinct. He ducked under the blast, which shattered the concrete wall behind him. He's resisting! Engage lethal countermeasures! Lethal. They were really going to kill him in a sewer. Death Arms charged. His quirk granted him immense strength in his arms. He swung a punch that would have pulverized a villain's skull. Izuku caught the punch. He didn't catch it with his hand. He used Black Whip. The black tendrils shot out, wrapping around Death Arm's wrist and redirecting the force into the water. A massive geyser of sewage erupted, blinding the heroes. I don't want to hurt you! Izuku yelled. Monster! The glowing sidekick screamed, firing bolts of plasma. Izuku leaped. He bounced off the walls, moving faster than their eyes could track. Full cowling 5%. He didn't need more. He landed behind the plasma user. With surgical precision, he struck a pressure point on the man's neck. The sidekick crumpled, unconscious but unharmed. You bastard! Death Arms roared, wiping the sludge from his eyes. He grabbed a loose iron pipe from the wall and swung it. Izuku ducked the pipe and swept Death Arms' legs. The heavy hero crashed into the water. The rifle user lined up a shot at Izuku's chest. Danger Sense screamed. Izuku extended his hand. Smoke screen. Purple smoke exploded from his body, filling the narrow tunnel instantly. The rifle user fired blindly, the shots pinging harmlessly off the ceiling. In the confusion, Izuku moved. He didn't attack. He ran. He sprinted past the heroes, deeper into the tunnel network. Coward! Death Arms yelled from behind him. Come back and fight like a man, Deku! The name echoed off the wet walls. Deku. 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 It used to mean you can do it. Now, coming from Death Arms' mouth, it sounded like a slur. Izuku didn't look back. He ran until his lungs burned. He ran until the voices faded. He ran until he found a ladder leading up to a different district. He climbed up, pushing the manhole cover aside. He emerged in an alleyway in the Naruhata district. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. He leaned against the wall, sliding down until he hit the pavement. He was shaking uncontrollably. Not from cold, but from adrenaline and horror. He had just attacked pro-heroes. Technically it was self-defense. But to the world? He had just assaulted a search party. He had incapacitated a sidekick. It's getting worse, he whispered, clutching his head. Everything I do makes it worse. His stomach growled, a painful, cramping reminder of his limits. He needed food. He needed bandages. He looked down the street. A 24-hour convenience store was open on the corner. The lights were bright and inviting. He pulled his hood down low. He wrung out his clothes as best he could. He kept his head down. He walked into the store. The bell chimed. The clerk, a bored-looking teenager with a mutation that gave him gills, didn't look up from his phone. Izuku walked to the aisle. He grabbed a Calorie Mate bar and a bottle of water. He grabbed a small first aid kit. He walked to the counter. He placed the items down. He kept his face hidden. 1,200 yen, the clerk said, still looking at his phone. Izuku reached into his wet pocket. He pulled out a crumpled bill. As he handed it over, the clerk looked up. The clerk's eyes went to the screen of his phone, where a news alert was flashing Izuku's face. Then he looked at the boy in front of him. He looked at the green curls peeking out from the hood. He saw the freckles. The clerk's eyes went wide. The color drained from his face. Izuku froze. Please, Izuku whispered. I just want to buy this. The clerk scrambled back, knocking over a display of gum. Don't kill me! The clerk screamed, raising his hands. Take the money! Take it all! Just don't hurt me! Izuku flinched as if he'd been slapped. I'm not. Help! The clerk screamed, hitting the silent alarm button under the counter. Villain! The villain Deku is here! Red lights began to flash in the store. Izuku looked at the terrified boy. He saw the genuine horror in his eyes. This boy wasn't looking at a hero. He was looking at a monster who blew up relief shelters. Izuku left the money on the counter. I'm sorry, he choked out. He grabbed the supplies and ran out the door, the sound of the clerk's screams chasing him into the night. Scene break, the aftermath. Izuku didn't stop running for a long time. He ended up in a dilapidated park near the edge of the city, hiding under a concrete slide shaped like an elephant. He tore open the energy bar and ate it in 2 bites, barely tasting it. He drank the water too fast, choking slightly. He opened the first aid kit and began to clean the graze on his cheek. The alcohol sting grounded him. He was public enemy number 1. The heroes were hunting him. The civilians were terrified of him. The villains were laughing at him. He pulled his knees to his chest again. All might. He whimpered. He wanted his mentor. He wanted his mom. He wanted to be back in the dorms, eating Sato's curry and listening to Bakugo yell. But that life was gone. He looked at his hands. They were scarred, crooked, and powerful. These were the hands that were supposed to save the world. Now they were the hands of a fugitive. Suddenly he felt a strange sensation. Not danger sense. Not the anger of the Black Whip user. It was a soft, pulsating warmth in the core of One for All. First user. Izuku closed his eyes and sank into the vestige world. He stood in the void. The vestiges were there, but they looked grim. You cannot stay in the city. 9th, the 4th user, Haiku Shinomori said, his face lined with worry. My quirk is overwhelmed. The hostility is too dense. You will go mad if you stay here. But I have to clear my name, Izuku argued, his astral voice shaking. I have to find the imposter. You cannot find them if you are captured, the first user said gently. The HPSC has turned the apparatus of the state against you. They are not looking for truth. They are looking for a conclusion. So what do I do? Izuku asked. Run away? Regroup, the first user corrected. You need to go where their eyes cannot see. You need to go deep. And you need allies, the second user said, his arms crossed. Not your school friends. They are compromised. You need someone who knows the darkness. Someone who hates the HPSC as much as they hate you. Izuku opened his eyes. Back in the rainy park. Someone who knows the darkness. He thought about the files he had read. He thought about the people he had fought. The heroes wouldn't help him. The police wouldn't help him. He had to go rogue. Truly rogue. He stood up. The rain had finally stopped, leaving a heavy, misty silence over the city. He reached up and touched his mask. It was tattered. The metal mouth guard was chipped. He pulled it up over his face. If they wanted a villain, he wouldn't give them one. But he wouldn't give them a victim either. He would be a ghost. Izuku Midoriya stepped out from under the slide. He didn't head toward the police station to turn himself in. He turned toward the darker, lawless district of Kamino, the place where All Might fell, and where the shadows were deepest. The hunt was on. But the prey had teeth. The HPSC headquarters, the war room, high above the city, in a glass-walled conference room, Agent Kuroda stared at a map of Muzurifu. Red dots indicated reported sightings of Deku. He escaped the sewer team, and analysts reported. Death Arms is in the hospital with a broken ego, but no serious injuries. The suspect used non-lethal force. That complicates the narrative, Kuroda muttered, tapping her pen on the table. If he keeps saving people or sparing heroes, the public might start to doubt the villain's story. She picked up a phone. Get me Lady Nagant, she said initially, then paused. No. She's unreliable. Get me the freelancers. The ones who don't care about capture. The ones who get paid for results. She looked at Izuku's file photo on the screen. You want to play hero, Midoriya? She whispered. Let's see how long you stay a hero when the whole world is trying to kill you. She slammed the file shut. Raise the bounty. 50 million yen. Alive or dead. The order went out. And across the city, in bars, basements, and back alleys, phones lit up with the offer. The breaking point had passed. Now, the war for Izuku Midoriya's soul had begun. The morning sun did not bring light to Yue High. It brought a gray, clinical illumination that exposed the wreckage of the night before. The storm had passed, leaving behind a damp, heavy humidity that clung to the skin like a second layer of sweat. Inside the Heights Alliance dorms, the silence was absolute. It was a physical weight, pressing down on the shoulders of the 19 remaining students of Class 1A. Breakfast was usually a chaotic affair. Sato would be baking, Bakugo would be yelling about knife skills, Ida would be chopping the air while lecturing on nutritional balance, and Izuku Midoriya would be mumbling over a notebook while shoving toast into his mouth. Today, the kitchen was cold. A single pot of coffee sat on the burner, reducing to a bitter sludge. Ochako Uraraka sat at the table, her hands wrapped around a mug that had gone cold an hour ago. She stared at the empty seat across from her, Izuka's seat. It felt like a gap in a row of teeth, a jagged absence that drew the tongue constantly. The news says he was spotted in the Chiba district. Tsuyu Ajui whispered, her usual rib bit absent. She was scrolling through her phone, her large eyes red-rimmed. But then another report says he was seen in Yokohama. They don't know where he is, they're hunting him like a dog. Eijiro Kirishima muttered, gripping his fork so hard it bent into a U shape. They have helicopters up. I can hear them, it's protocol, Tenya Ida said. He was standing by the window, his back rigid. His posture was perfect, but his voice was brittle, like dry leaves stepping on pavement. When an individual is designated a threat level of that magnitude, the HPSC initiates a nationwide manhunt. Don't call him an individual, Four Eyes, Katsuki Bakugo growled. He was slouching in the corner, arms crossed, staring at the floor with a terrifying intensity. He's Deku. He's the damn nerd. I am merely stating the facts of the situation. Ida turned, his glasses flashing dangerously. Do you think I enjoy this? Do you think I want to believe our class representative is a terrorist? But we saw the footage, Bakugo. We saw the DNA report. DNA can be planted. Uraraka slammed her mug down. Tea sloshed onto the table. Why is everyone giving up on him so fast? After everything he's done? He saved you, Ida-kun. In Hosu. He saved all of us. I haven't forgotten. Ida shouted back, his composure cracking. But that creates a bias. We are heroes in training. We deal in objective reality. If we let our emotions blind us to the possibility that perhaps the pressure broke him, or that there is something we don't know, then we are failing our duty to the public. The room fell silent again, the echo of Ida's shout hanging in the air. What if it's true? The voice was small, coming from the sofa. Denki Kaminari was hugging his knees, looking sick. What did you say, dunce face? Bakugo's voice dropped an octave, dangerously low. Kaminari looked up, his eyes wide with fear. I'm just saying, look at the facts. Deku came into Yui with a quirk that destroyed his body. He has secrets. He's always sneaking off. He has multiple quirks now. Who else has multiple quirks? Only the Noma. Only All for One. Shut up, Kirishima warned. No, listen. Kaminari stood up, his hands shaking. I don't want it to be true. Deku is my friend. But that video. The way he laughed. And the police said the biometrics were a perfect match. What if the Deku we know is a sleeper agent? What if he didn't even know he was a villain until someone flipped a switch? Minoru Mineta nodded slowly from beside him. It's possible. The stress of the war. Seeing Shigaraki. Maybe he snapped. If he comes back here, are we safe? He could kill us all in our sleep. Boom. An explosion rocked the room. Kaminari shrieked and dove behind the sofa. Bakugo stood amidst a cloud of smoke, his hand raised. He hadn't aimed at Kaminari. He had blasted the wall next to him, scorching the wallpaper. If you say one more word about that nerd being a traitor, Bakugo hissed, walking forward, smoke trailing from his palms. I will personally ensure you never speak again. Bakugo, stop! Momo Yayorozu created a metal staff, stepping between them. Fighting amongst ourselves is exactly what the villains want. We are fracturing. We're already fractured. Bakugo yelled, turning on the class. Half of you are cowards who are ready to sell him out because the TV told you to. You call yourselves heroes? You're sheep, and you're irrational. Shoto Todoroki spoke up. The room froze. Todoroki had been silent all morning, sipping his tea, his mismatched eyes unreadable. He stood up slowly. Bakugo is right, Todoroki said calmly. But screaming at Kaminari won't fix it. He walked over to the center of the room. My father, Todoroki started, the word tasting like ash in his mouth. Endeavor. He is currently meeting with the HPSC. Do you know what they are discussing? Containment. Not capture. Containment. They are treating Midoriya as a walking nuclear bomb, because of One for All. Bakugo said. The class looked at him. They knew about the quirk now. The secret had been partially spilled after the war, though the details were still murky to most. Whatever it is, Todoroki continued, the footage is the key. Kaminari, you're scared because the evidence looks perfect. But in my experience, when evidence looks perfect, it's usually manufactured. What do we do then? Sato asked nervously. We are on lockdown, Ida said, adjusting his glasses. Aizawa-sensei said no one leaves the dorms. The media is camped at the gates. We wait for the investigation. Screw the investigation. Bakugo spat. He walked toward the back door. Where are you going, Bakugo? Ida demanded. To the bathroom. Bakugo lied. It was a terrible lie. He didn't even look back. Todoroki set his cup down. I also need the bathroom. He followed Bakugo. Ida watched them go, his hand twitching by his side. He knew. They all knew. But for the first time in his life, the class representative didn't issue a command to stop them. He simply turned back to the window and watched the rain begin to fall again. The investigation begins. The ventilation shafts of the Heights Alliance dorms were not designed for stealth travel, but for two of the most athletic students in the hero course, they were manageable. Bakugo kicked the grate open on the north side of the building, dropping into the wet bushes. Todoroki landed silently beside him a moment later. They were dressed in civilian clothes, hoodies, face masks, and sunglasses. It was a flimsy disguise, but with the heavy rain and the chaos at the front gate, it might be enough. The media is distracting security at the main entrance, Todoroki observed, peering through the foliage. If we use your explosions to create a diversion on the east wall, no explosions, Bakugo grunted, pulling his black hood up. We need to be ghosts. If we get caught, Aizawa locks us in cells, and the nerd dies out there. We go over the west wall. Use your ice to make a ramp, melt it behind us. Todoroki nodded. Agreed. Where are we going, Kamino? Bakugo said, his eyes narrowing. The relief shelter. I want to see this destruction for myself. They moved through the campus shadows like wraiths. The tension between them was different than usual. There was no rivalry today. They were united by a singular, burning frustration, the knowledge that their rival was being framed, and the world was too stupid to see it. Getting over the wall was easy. Todoroki created a silent slide of ice. They vaulted over, and he dissolved it with a burst of heat before their feet even hit the sidewalk outside. They blended into the crowd of reporters and onlookers swarming the perimeter. Death to Deku! A protester screamed, holding a sign that depicted Izuku with devil horns. Fake hero! He destroyed our supplies! Another yelled. Bakugo's hands clenched in his pockets. Smoke wisped from his collar. Easy! Todoroki whispered, nudging him. Don't engage. I'm going to kill them. Bakugo muttered. Every single one of them. Save it for the real culprit. They took the subway. It was risky, but the trains were crowded, allowing them to hide in the crush of bodies. The news on the train's monitors was a loop of Izuku's face. Every time it flashed, Bakugo flinched slightly. They arrived at Kamino Ward an hour later. The devastation from All Might's battle with All for One was still visible in the architecture, but now, a new scar had been added. The Kamino Disaster Relief Shelter was a ruin. Police tape fluttered in the wind. Drones buzzed overhead, taking scans. It's heavily guarded, Todoroki noted, watching two police officers patrol the perimeter. We don't need to go inside, Bakugo said. We just need to see the impact points. They circled around to the back of the building, into a narrow alley that offered a view of the collapsed wall where Deku had supposedly entered. Bakugo pulled a pair of high-tech binoculars from his pocket, borrowed without permission from Meihatsume's lab before they left. What do you see? Todoroki asked, creating a small ice mirror to watch for police behind them. Bakugo adjusted the focus. He zoomed in on the twisted steel beams that jutted out of the concrete like broken ribs. The report said he used Black Whip to tear the wall down, Bakugo muttered. And Air Force smashes to destroy the supplies. Right. Midoriya's style involves blunt force trauma and omnidirectional energy release. Look at the steel, Bakugo said, handing the binoculars to Todoroki. Todoroki looked. Through the lenses, the damage to the steel beams was clear. They weren't bent or snapped by blunt force. They were sheared. The edges were clean, almost microscopic in their sharpness. There were serrated gouges in the concrete, rhythmic and precise. "That's not a smash," Todoroki whispered. "That's a cut." "Exactly." Bakugo grinned, a feral, humorless expression. "Blackwood grabs and pulls. It doesn't slice. Even at 100%, the energy is blunt. To cut steel beams that thick, you need a blade, or a cork that mimics a blade, or a machine," Todoroki added. "Something mechanical. Like a saw. And look at the blast pattern on the ground." Bakugo pointed. "Air force creates a radial blast. It pushes dust away from the center. Look at the debris." Todoroki shifted his gaze. The debris was scattered, yes, but there was a distinct scorch mark pattern. Small, concentrated burn circles. "Explosives?" Todoroki guessed. "Microcharges." Bakugo nodded, tapping his temple. "I know explosions. That wasn't wind pressure. That was rigged demolition. Someone planted charges to look like an impact, but they messed up the heat signature, so it was a setup." Todoroki lowered the binoculars. "A planned demolition, executed with cutting tools and explosives, disguised as a rampage, which means," Bakugo said, his voice trembling with suppressed rage, "the nerd wasn't even here. Or if he was, he didn't do this." "We need to tell the police," Todoroki said. "They won't listen," Bakugo snapped. "They have DNA. They have video. They'll say he used support items. They'll say he changed his fighting style. We need proof of who did it." "Who cuts like that?" Todoroki mused. "Toga uses knives, but she can't shear steel beams. Shigaraki decays. Dabi burns." "Someone new," Bakugo realized. "Or someone using tech? We need to find the supplier. Who sells microcharges in Kamino?" Before they could formulate a plan, a siren wailed close by. "Hey! You too!" a police officer at the mouth of the alley shouted. "This is a restricted zone. Identify yourselves." "Run!" Bakugo commanded. They bolted. Todoroki threw a wall of ice behind them to block the alley. They scrambled up a fire escape, hitting the rooftops. As they ran, the rain lashed against their faces. They had a lead. It was thin, but it was something. "We're not going back to UA, are we?" Todoroki asked as they leaped across a gap between buildings. "Hell no," Bakugo spat. "We're finding the supplier. And then we're finding Deku. Before I kill him myself for making me do this." The weight of a name. Miles away, in the labyrinthine slums of the Naruhata district, Izuku Midoriya was learning what it truly meant to be alone. He had been walking for 6 hours. He had ditched the sewers, the smell too pungent to hide, and was now sticking to the shadows of the overhead train tracks. He was unrecognizable. He had found a discarded, oversized gray hoodie in a dumpster behind a laundromat. He wore it over his hero costume, the hood pulled low to cast a shadow over his face. He had rubbed dirt and grease onto his cheeks to mask his freckles. His iconic red shoes were covered in mud, their brightness dulled to a rusty brown. His stomach gave a violent, painful lurch. Hunger. It was a shark clawing thing. One for all burned calories at a terrifying rate. Without fuel, his stockpile was weakening. He felt lightheaded, the edges of his vision blurring. "You need to eat, Ninth." The fifth user, Lariat, spoke in his mind. "Your blood sugar is crashing. You'll pass out if you engage in combat." "I can't," Izuku whispered to the air, his voice hoarse. "I have no money. I can't steal. If I steal, I prove them right. Survival isn't a crime," the second user argued, his voice harsh. "Steal an apple. Raid a dumpster. Do what is necessary. The HPSC won't hesitate to kill a starving boy." "No," Izuku gritted his teeth. "I am a hero, are you?" the second challenged. "Look around you." Izuku looked. Naruhata was a rough place, but the atmosphere today was suffocating. Even here, in the underbelly of society, the fear was palpable. People walked quickly, eyes on the ground. Shops were shuttered early. Posters had already been plastered on the walls. Crude, printed sheets of paper showing Izuku's face with the word "wanted" in bold red letters. Reward 50 million yen, 50 million. It was a staggering amount. Enough to make even a good person consider turning him in. Enough to make every low-level thug in the city sharpen their knives. Izuku pulled his hood tighter. He felt like a disease. He walked past an electronics store window. A row of televisions displayed a talk show. The host was interviewing a psychologist. The breakdown of the hero's psyche is fascinating, the psychologist was saying. Midoriya Izuku likely suffers from a messiah complex that inverted. When he realized he couldn't save everyone, he decided to destroy them. It's a classic path to villainy. Izuku wanted to scream. He wanted to smash the glass. I didn't invert. I'm trying to save you. But he kept walking. He turned a corner into a narrow alleyway, looking for a dry spot to rest. The rain was relentless, chilling him to the marrow. Suddenly danger sense buzzed. Not a spike, but a low hum of aggression. Voices ahead. Come on, lady. Just the purse. And maybe the jewelry. Izuku froze. He pressed himself against the wet brick wall and peeked around a dumpster. 3 men had cornered a woman against a chain-link fence. She was middle-aged, dressed in office wear, clutching a handbag to her chest. She was shaking violently. The men were thugs, villains of opportunity. One had a mutation quirk that gave him crab-like claws. Another had spikes protruding from his shoulders. The third was holding a switchblade. Please, the woman sobbed. Take the money. Just let me go. We'll let you go. The switchblade thug sneered. After we have some fun. The cops are too busy chasing that Deku kid to worry about us. Izuku's blood ran cold. They're using my name as cover. His body moved before his mind could catch up. The exhaustion, the hunger, the fear, it all vanished in the face of someone needing help. Wait, ninth! The fourth user warned. Think about this. Izuku didn't wait. He burst from the shadows. He didn't use quirks at first. He didn't want the lightning to give him away. He used pure athleticism. He closed the distance in a blink. He kicked the switchblade thug in the wrist, sending the knife clattering across the wet pavement. Gah! Who the hell? The thug with the spikes swung a heavy fist. Izuku ducked, weaving under the blow. He grabbed the thug's arm and used the man's own momentum to flip him over his shoulder, slamming him into a pile of trash bags. The crabclaw villain hesitated, eyes wide. Leave her alone! Izuku shouted. His voice was rough, distorted by his own fatigue, but the command was absolute. The crabman lunged. Izuku engaged full cowling at 5%. Just a flicker. Green sparks danced around his legs. He delivered a swift, controlled kick to the villain's chest, knocking the wind out of him and sending him sliding back into the wall. It was over in 10 seconds. The 3 thugs were groaning on the ground. Izuku stood panting, his chest heaving. He wiped the rain from his eyes and turned to the woman. She was pressed against the fence, her eyes wide with terror. Izuku softened his posture. He held out a hand, trying to smile, though he knew he looked bedraggled. Are you okay, ma'am? He asked gently. They won't hurt you now. You should get to the main street and call the woman didn't take his hand. She stared at his face. The street lamp above them flickered, casting a beam of light into the alley. It illuminated Izuku's face beneath the hood. The green curls. The freckles. The large, glowing green eyes. And the sparks. The lingering green lightning crackling around his legs. The woman's expression shifted. The fear she had felt for the muggers evaporated, replaced by a primal, soul-deep horror. She recognized him. No! She whispered. Izuku froze. Ma'am? No! She screamed. It was a sound that tore through Izuku's heart like a bullet. Stay away from me! I'm not going to hurt you! Izuku pleaded, taking a step forward. I'm a hero! I just saved. Hero? She shrieked. She scrambled sideways, moving toward the groaning thug with the switchblade. She actually grabbed the thug's jacket, using the criminal as a shield against Izuku. Help! She screamed at the empty street. It's him! It's Deku! He's going to kill me! Izuku stopped dead. His hand was still outstretched. She was choosing the mugger. She was choosing the man who threatened to assault her over him. The mugger on the ground looked up, saw Izuku, and his face went pale. Holy crap! It's the monster! Lady, run! Even the villain was terrified. Get back! The woman threw her handbag at Izuku. It hit him in the chest and fell into a puddle. Take it! Take everything! Just don't kill me! Izuku stood there, the rain soaking through his hoodie. He looked at the bag. He looked at the woman's face, twisted in a mask of pure revulsion. She didn't see a savior. She saw a demon. Something inside Izuku broke. It wasn't a bone this time. It was something vital, something that held his spirit together. The trust was gone. The contract between hero and civilian, I protect you, you believe in me, was void. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone must have heard the screams. Izuku's voice cracked. He lowered his hand. He looked at the woman one last time. There was no gratitude. Only hate. I'm sorry, he whispered. He turned and ran. He engaged full cowling to 15%, scaling the brick wall in seconds. He vaulted onto the roof and sprinted across the wet tiles. Behind him, he heard the police cars skid to a halt. He heard the officers shouting. He heard the woman crying, thanking the officers for saving her from the madman. Izuku ran until his legs burned. He ran until the city lights blurred into streaks of neon pain. He found a water tower on top of an abandoned apartment complex. He crawled underneath the tank, curling into a tight ball in the darkness. He wrapped his arms around himself, rocking back and forth. They hate me. They really hate me. He had given everything. He had broken his body over and over. He had sacrificed his childhood. And it had taken one video, one lie, to erase it all. Do not weep, Ninth. The first user's voice was gentle, but sad. Why? Izuku choked out a sob. Why bother? If they don't want to be saved, why am I doing this? Because... Nana Shimura's voice drifted through, warm and motherly. Being a hero isn't about being loved. It's about doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. Even when they hate you for it. It hurts, Izuku whispered, tears hot on his cheeks. It hurts so much. He closed his eyes, listening to the rain drumming against the metal tank. He couldn't go back to the light. The light burned him now. If he was going to save them, he had to do it from the dark. He had to become the monster they feared, so he could hunt the real monsters hiding in plain sight. Izuku reached up and pulled his hood down. He grabbed the tattered remains of his mask, the metal respirator that sat around his neck. He snapped it over his mouth. The click sounded like a prison door slamming shut. He wasn't the symbol of peace anymore. He was the tarnished symbol. The ghost of Kamino. Izuku Midoriya opened his eyes. The softness was gone. In the darkness of the water tower, his green eyes glowed with a new, terrifying resolve. He would find the imposter. He would find All for One. And he would end this, even if he had to destroy the name Deku to do it. Scene break. The shadows watch. High above the city, on a gargoyle perched on a Gothic cathedral, a figure watched the green lightning fade into the distance. She lowered her sniper rifle. Her hair was two-toned, purple and pink. Lady Nagant sighed, blowing a bubble with her gum. Poor kid, she murmured into her calms. He just had his heart broken by the people he loves. Is he in position? A voice asked in her earpiece. Not the HPSC. Someone else. He's hiding, Nagant said. He's ripe. The commission pushed him too far. He's realized the system is garbage. Good, the voice said. Keep watching him. Don't engage yet. Let him simmer in that resentment a little longer. When he's ready to burn the HPSC to the ground, bring him to me. Nagant stood up, shouldering her rifle arm. I don't think he wants to burn them, boss, she said, looking at the spot where Izuku had vanished. I think he just wants to know why. She leaped off the gargoyle, disappearing into the rainy night. But don't worry. I'll make sure he gets his answers. The city slept, uneasy and fearful, unaware that its greatest protector was shivering in the cold, while two of its brightest students broke the law to find him, and a former hero watched from the rooftops, waiting for the moment to strike. The trust was fractured. The foundation had crumbled. Now, only the ruins remained. Time in the underworld did not pass in hours or days. It passed in heartbeats and sirens. Since the incident in the alleyway with the terrified woman, Izuku Midoriya had stopped counting the sunrises. The sun didn't reach him anyway. He lived in the spaces between the city's breadths, the abandoned subway tunnels, the rooftops beneath the smog layer, the industrial graveyards where the silence was heavy with rust. It had been 5 days since the Kamino Relief Shelter incident. 5 days since he became a villain in the eyes of the law. In an abandoned shipping yard in the Kanagawa prefecture, the night air was thick with the smell of salt and diesel. A group of weapon smugglers were loading crates into a black van. They were confident, laughing, their quirks, minor strength enhancers and object manipulation, relaxed. Easy money. One of them grinned, lighting a cigarette. With the cops busy chasing that Deku kid, nobody's watching the ports. We could move a tank through here and nobody would blink. Yeah. Another laughed, hoisting a crate of illegal support items. Cheers to the fallen hero, huh? He's the best distraction we've ever had. The cigarette in the first man's mouth suddenly snapped in half. He blinked, looking down at the broken tobacco on his shirt. He hadn't touched it. It was as if a sudden, violent pressure had crushed it. The air in the shipping yard changed. The humidity vanished, replaced by a dry, static charge that made the hair on their arms stand up. The shadows between the shipping containers seemed to lengthen, to writhe. Did you hear that? The smoker whispered, reaching for the pistol at his waist. Hear what? Clank. A sound of metal hitting metal. High up, the smugglers looked up at the stack of containers towering above them. Perched on the edge of a red container, silhouetted against the gibbous moon, was a figure. It didn't look like a hero. It looked like a wraith. The costume was dark green, stained with mud and oil. A yellow cape, tattered and torn, whipped violently in the wind like a broken wing. The cowl was up, the metal ears bent, resembling the horns of a demon, but it was the eyes that froze the blood in their veins. 2 glowing green irises, burning with a feral intensity, trailing sparks of emerald energy that leaked into the air. It's him! The smoker choked out, his gun shaking. It's the monster! The figure dropped. He didn't fall, he accelerated downward. A burst of black tendrils, black whip, erupted from his back, stabbing into the containers to control his descent. Open fire! The smugglers unleashed a barrage of bullets and quirk attacks. The figure moved through the hail of fire like smoke. He twisted in midair, dodging a beam of energy by a millimeter. He landed in the center of the group, the concrete cracking beneath his iron saws. He didn't speak. He didn't recite the law. He moved with brutal efficiency. A tendril of black whip snapped out, wrapping around the smoker's gun and crushing it into scrap metal. In the same motion, the figure spun, a leg sweeping out. Full cowling 20%. The kick connected with the second smuggler's chest armor. The man flew backward, crumpling against the van with a groan. Die! A smuggler with rock skin shouted, winding up a punch. The figure caught the punch. His hand, covered in a ragged glove, stopped the rock fist dead. The air pressure formed the impact blew the dust away. Izuku Midoriya looked at the villain. Under the metal respirator, his breathing was ragged, harsh. Where is he? Izuku rasped. His voice was unrecognizable, a dry, broken growl. Who? The rock villain stammered, his bravado shattering under that glowing gaze. The supplier, Izuku said, squeezing the rock fist until the stone began to crack. The one selling the biometric spoofers. The one selling the mimetic tech. Where is he? I don't know what you're talking about. We're just moving suppressors. Liar, danger sense flared. A smuggler behind him pulled a knife. Izuku didn't turn. A third tendril of black whip shot from his back, grabbing the attacker by the ankle and hoisting him 10 feet into the air, leaving him dangling upside down. I don't have time, Izuku whispered. The exhaustion was a physical weight, dragging at his eyelids, burning in his muscles. He hadn't slept more than 2 hours a night. He hadn't eaten a full meal in days. Tell me where the tech is coming from, or I break your arm. Okay. Okay. The rock villain screamed. It's a broker in the Kinzoku district. A guy named Jiren. He's operating out of the old chemical plant. Just let me go. Izuku released the hand. He recalled the black whip, dropping the other smuggler into a pile of trash bags. He stood there for a moment, the green lightning fading. He looked at the unconscious men, then at his own trembling hands. "You're pushing too hard, ninth." The sixth user and spoke in the vestige world. His voice was calm but concerned. "Your body is reaching its limit. You need rest." "I can rest when I find him," Izuku muttered to himself. He launched himself into the air, swinging away into the night, leaving the terrified criminals to wait for the police. He wasn't a hero anymore. He was an instrument of retribution, the puppeteers. While Izuku hunted in the dirt, his tormentors sat in a sterile, white room that smelled of ozone and expensive cologne. It was a safe house, deep underground, shielded from all electronic surveillance. Tamura Shigaraki sat on a leather couch, scratching at his neck. His eyes were focused on a chess board on the table, but he wasn't playing against anyone in the room. He was playing against the voice coming from the monitor on the wall. "The pawn has moved to c4. All for One's voice purred. "Aggressive. Reckless. Just as we anticipated. He looks like garbage," Shigaraki sneered, glancing at a frozen frame of surveillance footage taken by a hidden drone. It showed Izuku in his dark Deku state, hunched, dirty, terrifying. "He looks more like a villain than I do." "That is the point, Tamura," All for One replied. The symbol of peace was a pillar of gold. It stood tall, reflecting the sun. It was rigid, unbending. But the boy wanted to be a foundation. He wanted to be the ground upon which society walks. The screen shifted, showing a graph of public sentiment. It was a steep downward curve. "To destroy a pillar, you strike it," All for One continued. "But to destroy a foundation? You rot it. You fill it with doubt. You make the people afraid to walk on it." "The HPSC is playing along nicely," Shigaraki said, picking up a black knight piece. "They're so scared of losing control that they're practically handing him to us." "Fear makes people predictable," All for One said. "They see a boy with too much power, acting outside their leash. They don't see a hero, they see a usurper." And Midoriya, he sees a society that rejects his sacrifice. How long until that save everyone heart turns black? How long until he decides that some people don't deserve saving? "And if he doesn't break?" Shigaraki asked, his red eyes narrowing. "If he keeps being a stubborn, self-righteous brat, then we break him physically." All for One chuckled darkly. "The imposter is in position at the chemical plant. The trap is set. Tonight we don't just tarnish his name, Tamura. Tonight we bury it." Shigaraki crushed the knight piece in his hand, decay turning the wood to dust. "Good. I'm tired of looking at his face." The trap. The Kinzoku chemical plant was a relic of the pre-Quark era, a sprawling, rusted labyrinth of pipes, distillation towers, and massive storage vats. It had been shut down years ago due to safety violations, but the fences were cut, and the lights inside were humming. Izuku landed on the roof of the main processing facility. The rain had started again, mixing with the chemical residue in the air to create a stinging, acidic mist. He crouched low, his danger sense buzzing like a hive of angry wasps. It wasn't pointing at a specific person, it was reacting to the building itself. "Traps," the fourth user warned. "The whole place is rigged. It's a setup," the second user, Kudo, added sharply. "They knew you would come. The interrogation was too easy. The smuggler gave up the location too quickly." "I know," Izuku whispered. He tightened the straps on his gauntlets. "But if they're here, I have to go in. I can't let them hurt anyone else." He slipped through a broken skylight, descending into the gloom on a line of black whip. The interior was vast and shadowy. Huge vats of volatile chemicals loomed like silent giants. The air tasted of sulfur and chlorine. Izuku moved silently along the catwalks. He saw movement on the ground floor. In the center of the facility, under a single flickering floodlight, was a chair. Tied to the chair was a figure. It wasn't Jiren. It wasn't a broker. It was a hero. Izuku squinted. It was Native, the pro-hero he and Ida had saved from staying all those months ago. Native looked beaten, his head hanging low, blood dripping onto the concrete. "Native!" Izuku gasped. He dropped from the catwalk, landing softly a few meters away. "Native, are you okay?" Izuku asked, stepping forward cautiously. The hero didn't move. Danger sense screamed. Izuku leaped backward just as the floor beneath him exploded. A spike of concrete shot up, missing his chin by inches. My. A voice echoed through the cavernous room. You really are predictable, Izuku-kun. Always running to save the damsel. Izuku landed on a pipe, scanning the room. From the shadows behind the chair, a figure emerged. It was him. Or rather, it was him. The figure wore the gamma suit, pristine, clean, the colors bright and heroic. The bunny ears stood tall. The metal mask shone. It was Deku. The Deku from before the war. The symbol of hope. He stood in stark contrast to the real Izuku, muddy, torn, emanating a dark, terrified aura. Who are you? Izuku growled, his voice vibrating with one for all. The impostor tilted his head. He pulled down his mask, revealing Izuku's own face. He smiled, a bright, All Might-esque smile that didn't reach his dead eyes. I'm Deku, the impostor said. The voice was perfect. It was Izuku's voice. I'm the hero who saves everyone with a smile. He gestured to the battered native. Well, almost everyone. Stop it! Izuku shouted. Stop using my face! Stop using my voice! Why? The impostor laughed, and the sound shifted, warping into something maniacal. You're not using them anymore. Look at you. You look like a villain. You skulk in the dark. You scare children. You break bones. I am the one the cameras love. The impostor raised a hand. Green lightning crackled around him. Izuku's eyes widened. How? Tech. The first user analyzed instantly. Plasma generators in the suit lining. Magnetic repulsion for the movement. It's a high-level mimicry. Let him go, Izuku said, charging up to 30%. This is between us. Oh, it is. The impostor grinned. But Toga-chan wants to play too, the impostor blurred. He moved fast, faster than a human should without a quirk. Izuku met him in the middle of the room. Their fists collided. A shockwave rattled the chemical vats. Izuku felt the impact. It was heavy. The impostor was using hydraulic pistons in his gauntlets to simulate super strength. You're weak, the impostor taunted, spinning and delivering a kick that released a blade of wind. Compressed air tech. Izuku dodged, sliding under the kick. He fired a shot of air pressure back. Delaware smash. The impostor took the hit, skidding back, but he didn't fall. Is that all the successor of All Might has? The impostor mocked. No wonder society turned on you. You're pathetic. You couldn't save Shigaraki. You couldn't save the city. You can't even save your own reputation. Shut up! Izuku roared. Black Whip erupted, 6 tendrils lashing out to grab the impostor. The impostor laughed. His body suddenly shifted, becoming fluid. He dodged the whips with unnatural flexibility. Toga's agility combined with the tech suit. He closed the distance, pulling a knife from his belt. A knife coated in a purple liquid. Izuku parried the strike, but the impostor was relentless. He fought dirty, kicking knees, throwing flashbangs, using the environment. You know what the best part is? The impostor whispered, leaning in close as their arms locked. The people want to believe it. They want to believe their heroes are monsters. It makes them feel better about their own selfishness. You're fighting for a world that wants you dead, Izuku. I don't care what they want. Izuku headbutted the impostor. Metal clashed against metal. The impostor stumbled back. I do this because it's right. Not for them. For the promise I made. Izuku landed a solid punch to the impostor's chest. The armor cracked. The impostor flew back, crashing into the control console of the plant. Heh! The impostor coughed, wiping blood, Izuku's blood type, from his lip. Touching. Truly. He slammed his hand down on a large red button on the console. But let's see if you can save them all. Sirens began to blare throughout the plant. Red lights strobed. Structural integrity compromised. A computerized voice announced. Detonation sequence initiated. What did you do? Izuku screamed. There are explosives on the support pillars. The impostor grinned, fading into the shadows as Mimicry's camouflage tech activated. And not just here. The North Wing is full of workers. I kidnapped them this morning. About 50 of them. You monster! The building comes down in 30 seconds. The impostor's voice echoed from nowhere. If you chase me, the workers die. If you say the workers, well, let's just say the cameras are already rolling outside. Boom! The first set of charges blew. The north wing of the plant groaned. The steel girders screamed as they buckled. Izuku didn't hesitate. He turned his back on the enemy. He ran toward the north wing, the weight of the world. The north wing was a scene of nightmare. The explosives had severed the main load-bearing columns. The ceiling, tons of concrete, steel, and heavy machinery, was coming down. Beneath it, huddled in a cage of laser grids, were the workers. Men and women in jumpsuits, screaming in terror as the roof cracked above them. Izuku burst into the room. There was no time to untie them. No time to move them. He had to catch the building. Smash! Izuku leaped upward. He slammed his hands into the falling ceiling slab. One for all, 45%. 50%. His arms buckled under the weight. It was immense. Millions of pounds of pressure. Grah! Izuku screamed, his boots grinding into the floor, cracking the foundation. The ceiling stopped falling. He was holding it. Just barely. Support it! The fifth user yelled. Use everything! Black whip! Dozens of black tendrils shot out from his back, grabbing the walls, the floor, the remaining pillars. He turned himself into a living web, a suspension bridge of flesh and energy holding the collapsing structure together. Go! Izuku screamed at the hostages, his voice straining. Run! Now! The laser grid flickered and died as the power conduit was crushed. The workers scrambled out, terrified. But they didn't run to safety immediately. They looked back. They saw the villain Deku. They saw the dark costume. The menacing black energy. The glowing eyes. To them, it didn't look like he was holding the ceiling up. From their angle, amidst the smoke and chaos, it looked like he was pulling the building down. He's destroying the plant! One worker yelled. Run! He's going to bury us! Izuku heard them. The words cut deeper than the strain on his muscles. I'm saving you. Look at me. I'm saving you. But he couldn't speak. He had to focus on breathing. On not letting his arms snap like twigs. Blood. He could taste copper. His nose was bleeding from the cranial pressure. His muscles were tearing. Outside, the news helicopters arrived. Their spotlights cut through the rain, illuminating the collapsing building. They zoomed in on the gaping hole in the wall. They saw Deku amidst the wreckage, surrounded by black tendrils, screaming as the building shook. Breaking news! The reporter in the chopper shouted. We are live at the Kinzoku chemical plant. The villain Deku has triggered a massive collapse. He appears to be using his quirk to tear the structure apart from the inside. Inside, Izuku felt the last worker leave the danger zone. Danger sense warned him. The main support beam was snapping. I can't hold it. He let go. He dropped to the floor and rolled, using Black Whip to pull himself out of the window just as the entire north wing imploded. Thousands of tons of debris crashed down where he had been standing a second ago. A massive cloud of dust and chemical gas billowed out, swallowing the facility. Izuku landed hard on the wet asphalt outside. He tumbled coughing, his body screaming in agony. His arms were bruised purple. His hero costume was shredded. He looked up. The workers he had saved were huddled behind police barricades. They were pointing at him. That's him! They shouted. He set the bombs! He tried to kill us! No! Izuku wheezed, trying to stand up. One leg gave out. I saved. I held it. The imposter stepped out from the smoke near the workers. He had ditched the Deku suit. He was now disguised as a wounded security guard. He's a maniac! The imposter shouted, pointing a shaking finger at Izuku. He was laughing! He said he wanted to watch it burn! The police opened fire. Bullets sparked against the pavement around Izuku. He was surrounded. The plant was a ruin. The people he saved believed he was their executioner. The media was broadcasting his crime to the world. Izuku looked at the camera drone hovering above him. He looked into the lens. For a moment, he wanted to scream the truth. But he saw the fear in the eyes of the police. He saw the terror in the workers. If he fought back now, he would hurt them. If he stayed, he would be captured, and One for All would be locked away, leaving Shigaraki unchecked. He had to run. Again, tears mixed with the blood on his face. Go, Izuku! Nana's voice whispered, heartbroken. You have to go. Izuku gritted his teeth. He summoned the last dregs of his strength. He engaged smokescreen. A thick cloud of purple smoke engulfed the area. He's using gas! A cop shouted. Masks on! Under the cover of the smoke, Izuku used float. He shot into the sky, disappearing into the dark, rainy clouds. The aftermath. Izuku landed miles away, in a forest on the outskirts of the city. He collapsed against a tree, sliding down until he hit the mud. He was shaking uncontrollably. His arms hung limp at his sides. He pulled out his phone, a burner he had swiped from the smugglers. He turned it on. The news was everywhere. Deku destroys chemical plant. Dozens injured. Is this the end of heroes? He watched the footage. It showed him screaming, the black tendrils thrashing. It looked demonic. He turned the phone off. He sat in the dark forest, the rain washing the dust from his hair. He was truly alone now. The trap had sprung perfectly. His reputation wasn't just tarnished, it was obliterated. He looked at his hands. They were trembling, stained with soot. Why? He whispered to the silence. No one answered. He curled up in the mud, closing his eyes. He didn't sleep. He just listened to the sound of his own heart breaking, beat by slow, painful beat. But deep within the core of One for All, a fire began to kindle. It wasn't the warm fire of hope. It was a cold blue flame. If he couldn't be the symbol of peace, he would be the shadow that protects the light. He would be the villain they needed him to be, so he could save them from the truth they couldn't handle. Izuku Midoriya stood up. He wrapped his tattered cape around himself. He turned his back on the city lights and walked deeper into the darkness. The hunt was far from over.